Of course, it is very difficult and painful to lose what you have been building for decades. Unfortunately, this happens, and you need to find the strength to get back on your feet even after a severe fall. My shock was the betrayal of my wife, which crossed out all my past, future, and most importantly, the present. But I found the strength. Jack Hebert lived upstairs in apartment 2B. It was a 16 by 16 room, which was plenty big enough for his needs. The beige carpet, measuring 12 by 16, ran the length of the room but stopped 4 feet from the small kitchen. The owner had installed fairly nice linoleum tiling in the kitchen, which extended into the small bathroom. Jack had placed a simple bath mat in the small bathroom, and it nearly covered the entire floor space, but that was good enough for him. He neither needed nor wanted much. Jack Hebert certainly didn't need the 3,200 square foot home his wife had insisted on buying. At first, he objected. It was just him, her, and their 16-year-old daughter. They simply didn't need that much space. Especially since Deidre would surely be moving out in just 2 years' time. The girl had been talking about nothing but going to Florida State ever since seeing a photograph of the college campus. But, as usual, Jack gave in and put down the 25% down payment of $52,500. 2 years after Deidre moved out, Jacqueline delivered the usual lines. "We've grown apart. It's not you, it's me. And this will help us reconnect." He wondered how a 47-year-old woman having an affair with a 31-year-old was supposed to help them reconnect. But, to Jacqueline's surprise, Jack didn't cave this time. He didn't give in. "You'll end up with nothing," she shrieked. Her usually pretty face twisted into an ugly snarl when he told her he was moving out. "That's fine. At least I won't end up with a wrinkled old slut," he replied, finishing packing his suitcase. Miller's Electronics sold him the equipment. Hiding them around their large home was easy. Jacqueline was lax in her housekeeping and inattentive to her surroundings. He discovered that Jacqueline's lover was a teacher at Baylor Lake High School. That's how they met. Brian taught English, and Jacqueline was the librarian. Jacqueline and Brian thought Jack would just go along with their plan. They'd have their fling. Then Brian would go back to his wife and Jacqueline to her husband. But Jack Hebert didn't become the head accountant for St. Elizabeth Public Utilities by being careless. He rose to that position by being careful and meticulous. As they had planned, Brian and Jacqueline went to Sweet Peas for that night's fried catfish dinner. When they arrived, they saw Brian's parents sitting at a table. A sheepish Brian introduced Jacqueline as a coworker. "So, where's Michelle?" Brian's mother asked pointedly. She's at home with the girls," Brian stammered. "Yes, she told us," his father interjected. "Said you had some sort of parent-teacher conference or something at school tonight." Yes, we do, but there was a little break, so we decided to grab a bite to eat," Brian stammered. "Uh-huh," both of Brian's parents replied, clearly not convinced by his flimsy excuse. After an awkward dinner, the not-so-romantic couple went to Foxtrot's lounge for a bit of dancing. Jacqueline loved dancing, but Jack wasn't a fan, having 2 left feet. At Foxtrot's, they ran into Jacqueline's mother and stepfather, who were dancing. "Yes, darling, your husband slipped Roger here a couple $100 to take me out for some dancing and drinks," her mother giggled. Then she looked at Brian and raised an eyebrow. But, what are you doing here?" she asked her daughter. "Well, you know Jack doesn't much like to dance, so, Jacqueline stammered. "Come on, Monique, they're playing our song," Roger insisted. "That is not our song, you silly old coot," Monique laughed, but let herself be dragged back onto the dance floor. But Jacqueline was determined to go through with her fling, if for no other reason than to show her boring husband that he wasn't about to ruin her evening. That was fine with Brian. The dancing and dinner had just been a means to an end for him. "Wow. Nice house," Brian whistled as he pulled up to the South Shore Baylor Lake home. "Thank you," Jacqueline said coyly. They entered the house, with Brian giving Jacqueline's flabby backside a generous squeeze. Hello, Brian, Michelle greeted from the living room couch. What? What are you doing here? Brian nearly screamed. Oh, I thought I'd show your wife and daughters where you'd be living, Jack Hebert said, coming into the room with a box of things. Hi, Jacqueline, I just stopped by for a few more of my things. I told you, yeah, Michelle said, her voice a tightly controlled whisper. I told you after Stacy. I told you that's it. The pregnant woman hefted herself out of the far too soft couch, walked over to Brian, and gave his face a stinging slap. Well, looks like y'all have a lot to talk about, so I'll be going now, Jack smiled. The girls really love the swimming pool. You son of a bitch, Jacqueline snarled at a smiling Jack. Uh-huh. By the way, y'all owe Danny $12 for babysitting Mealy and Mandy tonight, Jack said, pointing to the neighboring girl who was splashing in the pool with the two girls. Then he left the house. They had nearly $84,000 in equity in the house. Jacqueline screamed, cried, and begged Jack for forgiveness. She didn't want to lose the house or the nearly $17,000 worth of furniture she had accumulated. Her brand-new Mercedes-Benz still had 3 more years of payments left. Jacqueline pleaded and cried for Jack to forgive her, knowing she couldn't afford the car on her salary. She nearly fainted when Parker Johnson, her attorney, relayed the news. Jacqueline would be responsible for half of Deidre's tuition and living expenses as long as the child was in college. She also found it very difficult to make ends meet on a public school librarian's salary. Oh, no, honey, Monique laughed a tight little laugh when Jacqueline approached her with the idea of moving in with her parents. But it's just until I can, Jacqueline whined. Honey, it's a 2-bedroom condo, Roger said. I am so grateful your father isn't alive to see this, Monique added, fixing her daughter with her customary raised eyebrow. Remember? Monique inquired. When you brought that Jack Hebert kid home and your dad warned you about him being deceitful. He'd be surprised to see how mistaken he was. Their eldest, John Jr., phoned his father. Dad, Mom's asking if she can stay here, JJ said. Son, if you've got the space, then certainly let her stay, Jack replied. Well, it's just, I'm worried about potential issues, JJ confessed. Son, that woman changed your diapers, took care of you, fed you all those years. If you've got the room, offer it to her, Jack advised. Love you, Dad, JJ said. Michelle Melançon kept her promise. She didn't forgive Brian for his attempted fling. Brian discovered that living on half his salary wasn't feasible, so he ended up moving back in with his parents. However, at least this living arrangement allowed Brian's parents ample time with Amelia and Amanda, their 2 granddaughters. And when Michelle gave birth to Barry Melançon, named after her father, they got to spend time with him as well. Barry? I thought we were going to name him after me, Brian complained. We were going to, Michelle objected. But your little tool has made sure that there are no more we. At first, Jack considered the apartment as a temporary solution. But over time, he appreciated the lack of yard work, gardening, or pool maintenance. He found satisfaction in not having to change the wallpaper, paint the rooms, or replace the old carpet. Jack found that he liked the simplicity of not cleaning the garage, attic, or tool shed. In the closet of his apartment there were 12 suits, 12 shirts, and 24 ties, as well as 3 pairs of shoes, a coat, and a jacket. Jeans, underwear, socks, and shirts are conveniently placed in small drawers. His furniture was minimalist. His favorite reclining chair, 2 bookshelves, a small table, 2 dining chairs, and a large bed. He didn't even have a TV. Although he briefly considered using Deidre's services, he couldn't think of a single show he wanted to watch. Jack Hebert was a passionate supporter of the Saints, but at Red Sports Bar there was a 61-inch LCD TV, ice-cold beers, insanely spicy chicken wings, jalapeno-laden nachos, and more ice-cold beers. If there was a must-watch TV program, he could stream it on his laptop. He discovered a newfound interest in cooking. Jacqueline often complained about his mess in the kitchen, But here he had to choose between microwaving frozen dinners endlessly or mastering the art of cooking. So, he decided to learn. One evening, while driving home, Jack, armed with a new recipe for blackened chicken from a coworker, noticed a colorful building. Despite passing it countless times before, something made him glance over at that moment, a decision he couldn't quite explain. The curtains were drawn back, revealing a plate glass window of Kizzy's school of dance. Through it, he observed 7 couples twirling and gliding. The sound of a car horn snapped him out of his reverie, and Jack maneuvered into the parking lot of the building. Remaining in his car, he observed the scene. An attractive young woman, her face adorned with a beatific smile, demonstrated basic movements to the couples before signaling for them to begin anew. Though unable to hear the music, Jack's mind was filled with the fluid motions of the dancers, creating an internal melody. As the class concluded, some couples lingered to converse while others departed into the gathering twilight, heading to their cars. Prompted by a sudden resolve, Jack exited his vehicle. "Hi, can I help you?" the young dance instructor inquired, breaking away from an older couple. "Yeah, do you teach individuals? I'm not part of a couple. But what I saw in there was just so beautiful," Jack stammered, suddenly uncertain of his purpose. Kizzy's smile widened as she gently took Jack's nervous hands into her own warm ones. "Today's your lucky day, kid," she asserted. "All right," Jack replied, his luck not exactly feeling apparent. "Come on, let's see what we can do," Kizzy urged, guiding him to the counter. He consented to enroll in her 12-week program and agreed to show up that Wednesday night. "At 6 o'clock, I'll introduce you to your dance partner," Kizzy said, handing him his receipt. Well, looks like luck's on my side today," Jack grinned. Even while cooking dinner, Jack found himself humming the tunes he had imagined as he watched those couples dance before his eyes. Jack had crossed paths with Jacqueline Adams at Cabrini High School. She and her family had recently relocated from Stepping Stone, Louisiana, so her father could work at the Baggett mattress factory. She was pretty, but she didn't particularly stand out among the other beauties at Cabrini High School. Jack Hebert, on the other hand, was far from standing out among the elite at Cabrini High School. He wasn't remarkably good-looking, affluent, or athletic. He didn't own a fancy car, possess a poetic soul, or know how to dance. But he was intelligent. Following a period of neglect from the elite circles of Cabrini High School, Jacqueline Adams was overjoyed when Jack Hebert discreetly invited her to Jade Garden for Chinese cuisine. Despite her father's vehement denunciation of Jack Hebert as deceitful and untrustworthy, Jacqueline began to view him in a more favorable light. When Cabrini hosted its autumn formal, Jacqueline anticipated Jack asking her. As the event drew near, she took the initiative and inquired about his plans. "I'm not much of a dancer," he confessed to her. Consequently, she attended with Joe Manzella, and unexpectedly, Jacqueline and Joe became a couple. Though Jack felt a twinge of disappointment and rejection, he understood the practicality of their situation. At 18, they were free to date anyone. In a few months, he would attend the University of Southwestern Louisiana in Lafayette, while Jacqueline would go wherever she pleased, likely never crossing paths again. However, Joe's smug grin irked Jack. "Hey, Hebert, how's it going?" Joe teased. "Oh, just fine, Manzella. And how's Gina?" Jack retorted, alluding to Joe's promiscuous older sister. Despite Joe's physical prowess, Jack's quick wit prevailed. Joe swung at Jack, who deftly dodged, causing Joe to injure his hand on the cinderblock wall. "Ouch, that must sting," Jack chuckled as Joe inspected his swollen hand in dismay. Jacqueline attempted to incite jealousy in Jack by dating other boys, but ultimately conceded defeat and returned to him. She skipped the winter formal and the spring formal since Jack couldn't dance. 29 years later, in apartment 2B, Jack eagerly anticipated learning how to dance. On Wednesday, Jack donned his burgundy shoes along with his medium brown suit, light blue shirt, and burgundy tie. These burgundy shoes happened to be his most comfortable pair. "It feels like Wednesday," remarked Jill, one of the Human Resources administrative assistants, as Jack strolled past her cubicle. It is Wednesday, Jack replied. No, Wednesday is navy blue day, the young woman teased, pointing out his usual attire. You'd wear your blue and gray tie or your blue tie with the yellow dots. Not anymore, Jack grinned. We're mixing it up a bit. Is that a new suit? Inquired Rhonda, another accountant. No, it's his Friday suit, chimed in Bill, one of the IT men. Oh, Rhonda paused, giving Jack a curious look before returning to her computer screen. No, Bill, look here, it's stuck. I can't move to the next page. While Jack's choice of attire caused a minor buzz in the office, his departure 20 minutes early nearly sparked a panic. He drove to Tommy's Po' Boys, a quaint eatery adjacent to the dance studio, and came close to ordering his usual ham and cheese sandwich with olive dressing. No, you know what? Change that. I'll have a large shrimp with hot sauce from the table and a Coke, Jack decided. He savored his meal, glanced at his watch, then proceeded next door. Nervously sucking on a mint, he positioned himself away from the other patrons, all of whom were couples. Hey, you made it, Kizzy exclaimed upon seeing Jack. I'd like you to meet Michelle Melançon, your dance partner. The last time Jack had seen her, Michelle Melançon had been nearly 8 months pregnant. He remembered her as a pretty, plump young woman with 2 adorable daughters, her face stained with tears and then flushed with anger. Michelle Melançon stood at 4 feet 11 inches, likely weighing around 170 pounds. Her round face featured a small button-like mouth, a petite nose, and large brown eyes. Her vibrant carrot-orange hair was tightly curled and kept relatively short. Her bosom was more than ample. Her midsection still retained some of the post-baby weight. Her hips and buttocks were curvy. Encased in tight jeans, her thighs appeared thick and shapely. Every aspect of Michelle Melançon exuded roundness. Hey, Bubbles, Jack greeted her without a second thought. Her laughter erupted. Why do you call me that? She chuckled. I'm not sure, he confessed, feeling a slight blush as they became the focus of attention from the other couples. It just popped into my head. He learned that her parents had enrolled her in 12 weeks of dance lessons as a way to get her out of the house for a few hours. But when Michelle arrived for her first lesson, Kizzy had to admit they lacked male partners for her. Michelle didn't mind. She sat and observed the class, admiring their movements. Then Kizzy texted me and told me to come here this Wednesday, Michelle bubbled. By the end of the first lesson, Jack was drenched in sweat. Midway through, he had to take off his jacket. Michelle then reached up, her small hand loosening his tie and unbuttoning the top button of his shirt without much thought. There, doesn't that feel better? She asked as they moved to another step. Relax, Jack, let the music take over, Kizzy encouraged. As the lesson concluded, Michelle seized his hand. You'll be back next week, won't you? I had a blast, she exclaimed. You enjoyed it? Dancing with an old guy? He teased, grabbing his suit jacket. You're not old, she insisted. Twice your age, he pointed out. Yeah, but still, she countered. I'll be here, he assured her. As they danced, Jack tried to maintain eye contact with Michelle's big brown eyes. Occasionally, though, his gaze would stray to her ample chest before he quickly redirected it back to her eyes, blushing when she smiled warmly at him. As she exited the building, he observed her ample rear in her well-fitted jeans. Michelle seemed to feel his gaze and turned at the door, giving him a broad smile. Did you enjoy yourself? Kizzy inquired. You know what? I really did. Even though I'm not great at it, I genuinely enjoyed myself, Jack confessed. First off, you're not bad at it. You're just a beginner, another woman chimed in. And secondly, dancing is all about enjoyment, her partner added. Focus on having fun, and the skill will follow. I couldn't agree more, Kizzy concurred. The following morning, Jack hesitated between his Thursday suit and his Wednesday suit from the closet. Now I'm completely turned around, Jill teased as he walked down the hallway. He simply grinned. His phone vibrated and he noticed it was JJ, so he picked up. Dad, listen, Shauna, JJ stumbled over his words on the phone. Is your mom driving you crazy? Jack guessed. Yeah, did you hear the school fired her? JJ inquired. No, they didn't, Jack exclaimed. Yeah, and that guy Brian, too, JJ added. Wow, Jack responded. Why? Did she say why she got fired? No, I asked. But she just says she doesn't want to talk about it, JJ explained. Jack recognized the pattern. Jacqueline used to say the same whenever she found herself in trouble. She'd simply refuse to discuss it, repeating the statement until the subject was dropped. And regarding Shauna, the baby will arrive in a few months, JJ continued. All right, I'll speak with her, Jack sighed. They rendezvoused at Jade Gardens. Jack couldn't help but muster a sad smile. Clearly, Jacqueline thought it was a romantic outing. She had caked on her makeup, squeezed her aging figure into a dress with a plunging neckline. A year prior, Jack would have been thrilled to see her dressed like that. He would have eagerly anticipated intimacy later. Today, the attire looked forlorn, inappropriate on an older woman who wasn't aging gracefully. Well, don't you look lovely? He remarked pleasantly as he took his seat across from her. Thank you, and is that a new suit? Jacqueline inquired. Yes, I wore the wrong one the other day and nearly caused a scandal, Jack chuckled. Realized I'd become quite predictable, so I donated all my old suits to Goodwill and bought new ones. Well, aren't you fortunate? Jacqueline retorted with a hint of bitterness. Yes, indeed, Jack agreed cheerfully. The waitress approached, eager to take their order. Jacqueline, I'm fully aware of your usual order. You get the same thing every time, Jack remarked. But I'm willing to bet you $1,000 you couldn't guess what I want. Jacqueline pondered for a moment, trying to recall his typical choice. Are you ready to order? The waitress interrupted. She'll have the spring rolls and sweet and sour pork, right? Jack predicted. Correct, Jacqueline confirmed. As for me, I'll have a sweet iced tea and the kung pao chicken with fried rice. Jack finalized the order. So, how have you been? Jacqueline inquired. Things are good, Jack replied. Work's going well. Got myself a little bachelor pad. Just mentioned my new suits. They've increased in price since our last purchase, and Rhonda just announced she's pregnant, so I'll need to find a temporary replacement. And you? The waitress placed his sweet iced tea on the table, and Jack nodded appreciatively. He listened as Jacqueline complained about losing her job and the challenges of living with JJ and his wife. Shauna didn't seem to like her much. Deidre was still upset with her, but at least Penelope and Percy were being nice to her. But neither of them say they have any room, she concluded sadly. So get your own place, you're an adult, Jack said as the waitress brought their food. With what? My good looks? Jacqueline snapped. I just told you I lost my job. Well, if you can't rely on your good looks, then try your charming personality, Jack suggested. Fuck you, Jack, Jacqueline snarled. Just eat, Jack said. Every time I get this, it seems hotter than the last time I ordered it. As Jack ordered a bowl of chocolate ice cream for her and a bowl of Neapolitan for himself, Jacqueline brought up the idea of reconciliation. Not just no, but absolutely not, he smiled, even as she leaned forward, revealing her sagging breasts. But why not? She nearly screamed. So I can wait for you to say next time that we've drifted apart. And it's not about me. It's about you. You just need a little excitement. It doesn't mean anything. It's just intimacy. Will it make us stronger as a couple? Jack asked, spooning a little ice cream into his mouth. Jacqueline seriously considered hurling her ice cream at him and his fancy new suit. The waitress returned and forcefully placed the bill on the table. Jack glanced over it briefly and placed his credit card on the small tray. The unfriendly woman promptly hurried away. It could be hormonal, Jacqueline suggested. As I'm aging, my menstrual cycles are becoming less regular. And instead of consulting Dr. Pelure about it, you choose to be with another man, Jack remarked, signing the bill and adding a flat 15% tip. But he was so supportive, unlike you, always so preoccupied, and Brian, Jacqueline complained. I was constantly occupied with all the tasks you deemed urgent, Jack replied, rising from his seat. I was always too busy chauffeuring our daughter around. He shook his head sadly. You know what I haven't heard? I've heard all these excuses, it's my fault, it's hormones, Brian listened to you, Jack said. But not once have I heard Jacqueline apologize. Not once have I heard Jacqueline take responsibility. But I am sorry, Jacqueline interjected quickly. JJ and Shauna need that bedroom for their baby, Jack stated. So you need to find yourself a nice little apartment or something. And St. Elizabeth Courthouse offers a program to assist you in finding employment. Take advantage of it. Jacqueline severed another connection in her past. Upon returning to the modest bungalow where JJ and Shauna resided, she unleashed her anger on Shauna, hurling racist insults at the girl. Thanks for nothing, Dad, JJ bitterly muttered into the phone. Nope, I talked to your mom and explained that you guys needed that room for the baby, Jack countered. Whatever she did or said after that, that's on her. Jack caused quite a stir at St. Elizabeth's Public Utilities when he showed up at the office on Friday. Instead of his usual brown suit, he was dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. However, the real shock came the following Wednesday at 5:10, when Jack emerged from his office wearing snug blue jeans, a baby blue pullover shirt, and penny loafers, with his suit casually draped over his shoulder. A mild, seismic wave of surprise spread through the building. And you're leaving 30 minutes early? Rhonda remarked. Go, Jack! Go, Jack! Chanted Garrett, one of the IT guys. At Tommy's, Jack requested a fried oyster po' boy and a cola. Once he finished eating, he admitted that his favorite was still the hot ham and cheese with olive dressing. Well, you never know until you try, he remarked aloud. Michelle eagerly awaited him, greeting him with a wide smile. That outfit looks much more comfortable than that fussy old suit, she complimented, running her hand along his arm. Hey, Bubbles, you're looking good too, he grinned. She chuckled happily at the nickname. Feeling much more at ease, he thoroughly enjoyed their lesson. All right, back to the kids, Michelle announced as Kizzy praised everyone for a great class. I'm sure Barry's hungry by now. Barry? Oh, right, the little one, Jack remembered. How are the kids? Mealy's starting to question why we can't live with Daddy almost all the time. Mandy's starting to echo her. And Barry's content as long as he has a dry diaper and a breast to feed on, Michelle confessed. She beamed at him when he immediately glanced at her ample chest. See you next Wednesday. Bubbles, Jack grinned. I'm going to come up with a nickname for you, Michelle warned. Yeah, sure, can't wait, Jack replied. Next, it was Percy's turn to call Jack, complaining about his mother. Dad, please, do something. Percy whined. She's been here for 2 days and already Addison's about to lose it. Or me. Am I supposed to be the mediator? Jack joked. That's exactly what Jacqueline accused him of when he called her to ask her to leave Percy's cramped apartment. My place is only $425 a month. You can't say you can't afford that, huh? Jack argued. I lost my job, Jack. It's kind of hard to rent a place when you're broke, Jacqueline shrilled. Jacqueline, remember we sold the house, Jack reminded her. We each got a check for $42,000. What happened to all that money? She didn't answer, just pleaded for him to reconsider reconciling. Remember what you told me when I asked if you wanted to go to the Catskills? Jack inquired. On our last vacation? You said, hey, why don't we go to the Catskills? We loved it there last time we went. Remember? No, you know I don't, she retorted. But I'm sure you do. You said, why bother? Well, Jacqueline, why bother? Reconciliation? Why bother? Jack remarked. Penelope made it clear to her mother that despite her love for her, there simply wasn't space for her at her apartment. Moreover, Mother, you dislike dogs. And Samson and Delilah were here first, Penelope pointed out as her 2 Irish wolfhounds whined and begged for her attention. Hey, Jack, where are you headed? Jill inquired as he casually walked past her desk holding his suit. What's up? He chuckled. I don't interrogate you every time you leave. True, but I don't wear that grin every time, she grinned back. Jack knew if he spilled the beans to Jill by tomorrow morning, the whole St. Elizabeth's Public Utilities office would be buzzing. They all knew about his divorce from Jacqueline and the reasons behind it. Women were approaching him, bad-mouthing Jacqueline, and assuring him that not all women were like her. Meanwhile, men were either offering silent support or avoiding him altogether. Okay, Jill, but this stays between us, Jack relented. You know I won't spill, Jill assured, excitement twinkling in her eyes. Well, every Wednesday, post-divorce, you know, with only half of everything, how else am I supposed to make ends meet? Jack explained. I get it, that woman, Jill nodded sympathetically. Anyway, I've been making some extra cash by posing as a male model for the ULD art classes on Wednesdays, Jack confessed in a whisper. You're kidding, Jill exclaimed, eyes widening in disbelief. Yeah, University of Louisiana at DeGard, Jack clarified. They have these art sessions where they pay me $100 to strip down and just stand there. I mean, the first time was mortifying. One girl joked she was running out of red paint trying to capture my blush, but hey, after that? Jack barely made it to his car before erupting into laughter. As he stepped into Kizzy's, his laughter still echoing, Michelle seized his hand. All right, Jackhammer, spill it. What's got you cracking up? She demanded, her hand delicately covering her mouth as they both chuckled. Blushing, he recounted the anecdote he'd shared with the office gossip. Their laughter mingled as Kizzy called for the class's attention. So, Jackhammer, you ready? Michelle teased. Yeah, that's what all the ladies call me, he replied, eliciting an immediate blush from Michelle. I didn't mean it like that, she protested, playfully smacking his arm. What's the issue? Kizzy grinned. She hit me, Jack pretended to complain. You should have heard what he said, Michelle countered. I'll come up with another nickname, she promised as they danced. Sure thing, Bubbles, Jack grinned, spinning her. That's it, Kizzy encouraged. Other couples joined in, cheering them on, and both Jack and Michelle beamed. Do you want... Jack stuttered as Kizzy ended the class. Michelle's smile didn't ease his nerves, but he pushed forward. Hey, would you like to go get a cup of coffee or something? He inquired. Can't, Michelle replied. Remember... I'm nursing. Oh, right, I totally forgot about that, Jack acknowledged. But how about grabbing a big milkshake at Clark's? Michelle suggested, smiling as she took his hand. Yeah, that sounds great, Jack agreed, smiling despite his embarrassment. Shall we take your car? Michelle suggested. However, upon seeing that Jack drove a smart car, she nudged him towards her minivan. I'm not getting into one of those, she declared. It's like trying to fit a basketball into a golf ball. Oh, come on. They're bigger than they appear, Jack argued, but complied and got into her minivan. She quickly texted her parents to let them know she was stopping at Clark's. Yes, it's a date, she replied when her mother inquired. Before they could even make the short drive from Kizzy's School of Dance to Clark's Drive-In, Michelle's phone buzzed with messages 8 times. Should I pick that up, Ross? Jack inquired. No way, it's probably my family trying to make me crazy, she remarked after glancing at her phone. Michelle opted for a large chocolate malt, while Jack chose a vanilla cone with a chocolate dip. So, Jack Rabbit, what made you interested in dancing? Michelle asked, observing Jack's gaze following the cute waitress as she skated away, her buttocks accentuated by the familiar red shorts. Jack Rabbit, huh? Jack grinned. That's what my lady friends call me? Forget it, Michelle laughed as her phone buzzed again. And stop eyeing all those girls in shorts, she insisted. I was just picturing how good you'd look in them, Jack blurted out before his brain could intervene. Before she could respond, a police car pulled into the space beside them. Seriously? Michelle exclaimed as her older brother emerged from the car. Got a problem with your phone? Officer Richard Voisin asked his sister. No, I'm ignoring it, just like I'm ignoring you, she retorted. Sure, Richard smirked. Hi, Jack began. Jonathan Archibald Hebert, Sr., Richard interrupted. Check the tags on your car. Really? Michelle protested. Can't even enjoy a malt in peace? Richard playfully pinched her nose. Not after what Brian did to you, he said. We need to make sure this guy's all right. He nodded towards Jack. Don't worry about answering your phone, he said as he prepared to walk around his car. I've already informed everyone that Jack is okay. I hate you, she yelled at him. Love you too, Richard said, opening his door. You should bring him over on Sunday. Jack chuckled, and a moment later Michelle also laughed. I'm so sorry about that, she said. God, what an awkward first date, huh? Actually, I think this is a great first date, Jack said. And that's what I'm going to call you, she exclaimed, after taking a big slurp of her malt. Archibald, huh? Archie. Oh, God, please don't, he protested. Aw, but Archie, she teased. Her phone buzzed a few more times, but she ignored it as they enjoyed their ice cream treats. When she pulled up next to his car, the only one in the parking lot of Kizzy's school of dance, they continued to chat quietly. Michelle could see that Jack was becoming more and more nervous. Archie, are you trying to kiss me? She finally asked. I am. Yeah, he admitted. And she pulled him by his shirt front and kissed him. Give me your phone number. You're coming over for Sunday dinner whether you want to or not, she said, after they parted. 31 messages? She asked, glancing at her cell phone display again. Seriously? With another long kiss, Jack got out of her car, opened the door of his car, smiled, waved, and then drove away, leaving her to respond to 31 text messages. Jack entered the building, and Whitney, the friendly but somewhat scatterbrained receptionist at the front desk, blushed as she greeted him. On the third floor, some women blushed while others avoided making eye contact. A few of the men chuckled, and Garrett flashed him a thumbs up. Suddenly, Jack recalled his conversation with Jill the night before and couldn't help but burst out laughing. You said you wouldn't tell anyone, right? He quipped when he spotted Jill in the break room. Oh, but I didn't, she protested, her face betraying guilt. The following Sunday, he looked presentable, especially sporting his Saints pullover and khakis. Look at that, the man knows how to dress, Michelle's father, Barry Voisin, remarked to her older brother. Mr. Archie, can we come over to swim at your place again? Amelia, also known as Mealy Melançon, inquired. Unfortunately, sweetheart, I no longer live there, Jack replied. Then it dawned on him. His apartment complex had a pool. Often he'd come home from work to see various figures, both beautiful and not so much, lounging by the pool. But my apartment does have a pool, he mentioned. Can we swim at your place then? Mandy asked eagerly. Absolutely, Jack agreed. Do you really want to see me in a swimsuit? Michelle whispered. Absolutely, Jack exclaimed without hesitation. You're incorrigible, Archie, she chuckled. He seemed fine, especially when he mentioned to Barry and Richard that he usually frequented Red's sports bar to catch the Saints games. Man, they used to serve the hottest wings, yeah. I swear you'd lose feeling in your tongue after. They still have those wings? Barry inquired. Yes, both Jack and Richard confirmed. If anyone found it slightly peculiar that Michelle's partner was 20 years her senior, nobody commented. Jack and Barry reached for the last biscuit to soak up the remaining rice and gravy and smothered steak. Marie Voisin tapped Barry's knuckles with her spoon. He's our guest, yeah? Give him that biscuit, she instructed her husband. But I really want that biscuit, Barry complained, patting his stomach. Look, I'm practically wasting away, yeah. Well, I wouldn't want that to happen, no, Jack replied. Go ahead, take the last one. No, you seem hungrier than me, Barry grinned widely. All right, then. See you on Wednesday, Jack said, bidding farewell to Michelle's 6 siblings, Mealy, Mandy, her parents, and her siblings. Do I have to wait that long? Michelle asked. Well, no. We can go to side-by-side and then foxtrots. We've practiced enough, right? Jack suggested. Ooh, side-by-side, Marie exclaimed. Barry, why don't you take me to side-by-side, huh? Because I'm frugal, yeah, Barry replied. We're taking my van. Yeah, I'm not getting in that tiny thing you call a car, Michelle declared, wrinkling her nose at his smart car. Oh, what are you talking about? That? That's a Mercedes-Benz, yeah, Jack asserted. That's not a Mercedes-Benz, Michelle laughed. Yeah, it is. Made by Mercedes-Benz, Jack insisted. They embraced and kissed while her entire family observed, lingering until they felt comfortable. Then Jack assured he'd arrive by 6:30 the following evening. Jack marveled at how effortlessly he had reverted to the dialect of his upbringing. His maternal grandparents primarily spoke Cajun French, with only a smattering of English. His paternal grandparents had a strong accent in their English and often lapsed into Cajun French when agitated or excited. Many dinner-table conversations were a blend of English and Cajun French. When Henry Jonathan Heber and Elise Cynthia Arnaud Heber wanted to keep something private from their children, they conversed in Cajun French. Little did they know, all 3 boys understood the language. During high school and college, Jack gradually shed his accent. As an administrator at St. Elizabeth's Public Utilities, he made a conscious effort to speak clearly, devoid of any Cajun inflections. After spending an afternoon at the Voisin family table, he felt reconnected to his roots. He went online, found the phone number for Side-by-Side Steakhouse, and left a message asking for a table for 2 at 6:45 the next evening. Not even a call from his ex-wife could dampen his spirits. Hi, Jack, it's me, she cooed. Notice that, he replied, resisting the urge to speak with a Cajun accent. Jacqueline had made fun of his accent when she wasn't around his parents. She also criticized their cooking, calling it unhealthy. She'd scoff. Contrary to popular belief, grease isn't actual food. So Jack was careful not to give Jacqueline any reason to criticize him. How have you been? She inquired. You know what? I've been all right, Jack replied, though he winced. Guess what? I finally took the plunge and got myself a small place, Jacqueline announced. That's good to hear, Jack nodded. Hey, I was thinking, maybe you'd like to come over. Jacqueline attempted to charm him. Why? Jack questioned. Just to check out the place and I'll make those stuffed bell peppers you used to love, Jacqueline reminded him. Jacqueline, I don't think that's a good idea, Jack declined. With that, Jacqueline's facade crumbled. She turned to whining and self-pity, lamenting that their children wouldn't speak to her anymore. I can't believe Deidre hung up on me, my own baby, she cried. Well, I have plans tomorrow, Jack conceded. What about Wednesday? Jacqueline proposed eagerly, her tears drying as quickly as they came. Sorry, Wednesday's booked too, Jack replied. What are you doing? Jacqueline pressed. Jack briefly considered telling her the same thing he told Jill. I have a class at school. Refreshing a few things, he said. It wasn't entirely untrue. He had taken courses at the University of Louisiana at DeGard over the years, and he was indeed refreshing skills. He just didn't want to admit he was brushing up on his dancing. How about Tuesday, then? She suggested. Sure, Tuesday works, he agreed. At 10:30 on Monday morning, a young woman named Lacey phoned his mobile and confirmed his reservation for 2 at Side-by-Side Restaurant for 6:45 that evening. We're excited to have you join us, Mr. Hebert, the young lady said with a pleasant tone. Not as excited as I am, Jack quipped, and Lacey chuckled. Michelle also giggled when Jack called to remind her of their evening plans. Like I'd be thinking about anything else? She teased. With a love you, Archie, Michelle ended the call. Jacqueline hadn't uttered love you until almost a year into their relationship, and even then it had been in response to his own declaration of love. Moreover, Jacqueline hadn't used any terms of endearment. The only instances she'd ever called him honey or baby were when she needed something. Once more at 6:30, Jack found himself welcoming Michelle's extensive family. Her parents, siblings, nieces, and nephew. She only had one nephew named Richie. Along with Mealy, Mandy, and Barry, whose toothless grin greeted him. Michelle wore a dress a tad too snug, obviously her finest, yet clearly bought long ago, likely before her pregnancy with Amelia, Jack speculated. "Damn, Bubbles, I should have dressed fancier," Jack remarked, though he sported a sharp black pinstripe suit, crisp white shirt, and blood-red tie. "What? You're looking sharp," she countered. "Yeah, but not as stunning as you," he admitted, making her blush with pride. "Why don't you say things like that?" Marie asked Barry. "Because then I'd never stop," Barry quipped, planting a kiss on his wife. "You're fibbing," she teased, returning his kiss. "I'll arrange a police escort for y'all," Richard joked. "Do, and I'll kill you," Michelle threatened. Mr. Heber," the restaurant hostess greeted them. "Right this way." Michelle gazed around the elegant restaurant in amazement. It was the finest place Brian had ever taken her, Casa Ole Mexican Restaurant. When she noticed her menu lacked prices, she inquired about it. "Sweetheart, it's so you don't worry about what you're ordering," Jack said softly, clasping her small hand in his. "Get whatever you want," he reassured her. "Whenever we're together, you can have anything you desire. Understand?" Looking into his warm brown eyes, Michelle felt her heart flutter. "I love you," she blurted out suddenly, her eyes widening in surprise as she realized what she had said. "Oh, hearing that makes me so happy because I'm in love with you too," Jack smiled. "You are?" Michelle gasped. The ribeye was perfectly cooked, with a seared exterior locking in the juices of the thick cut of meat, while the interior boasted a tender pink hue. Michelle attempted to finish it, but only managed to eat half. Jack polished off his T-bone, but they both agreed to postpone dessert. In the foxtrot, Michelle leaned against him contentedly while the orchestra played a waltz. Jack couldn't help but run his hand down her back, assessing her curves. She giggled as if she had read his mind. "And all I'm wearing are tights," she whispered to him. Jack's instrument, which had been threatening to grow in size since he had picked her up that evening, had reached its maximum. "Oh, Jack," she exclaimed with a laugh when she felt it. "You're looking different today, aren't you?" Jill remarked as Jack exited his office, clad in his typical Wednesday attire of jeans and a pullover shirt. "Different?" Jack queried. "Yeah, yesterday you seemed pretty down when you left," Jill observed. "But tonight, you've got that Wednesday night grin plastered on your face." Jack's smile widened as he headed towards the elevator. The previous night he had visited his ex-wife's new apartment. Jacqueline now rented a one-bedroom unit, boasting about 200 square feet more space than Jack's. The complex was upscale. The parking lot was free of abandoned cars, and the grounds were well-maintained. Inside, the apartment was neat but simple, with white walls and beige carpeting. The stuffed peppers were enjoyable, and Jacqueline had whipped up a broccoli casserole to complement them on the stove. At the Voisin household, they bowed their heads in prayer before diving into the meal. Ever since Sunday's lunch, Jack had taken to blessing his food with prayer. "I'm not trying to poison you. There's no need to pray," Jacqueline exclaimed as Jack bowed his head. Throughout dinner, Jacqueline grumbled about the high rent, expensive furniture, her tedious courthouse job, and noisy neighbors. Once again, Jacqueline broached the topic of reconciliation. "Did you hear me?" Jacqueline asked, trying to suppress her irritation. Jack finished chewing, took a sip of his iced tea, and turned to her. "Why did you cheat on me?" he asked bluntly. "What? What does that have to do with—" Jacqueline spluttered. "It has everything to do with it," Jack replied. He placed his napkin on the table. "Jacqueline, for some reason you decided to sleep with Brian Melançon. I warned you against it, expressed my discomfort, and told you it could jeopardize our marriage. But you went ahead anyway. The only reason you didn't? I guess I messed things up, huh?" I really didn't think, Jacqueline admitted weakly. I know. You didn't think I would put up such a fight, didn't think I would leave or file for divorce, didn't think you wouldn't get your way like you always did. Jack sighed. See? Jacqueline protested. You're just as much to blame as I am. You always... Jacqueline. I still haven't heard you apologize, he said, rising to his feet. You're not done yet. You still have... Jacqueline protested. I'm done with you, Jack said, striding to the door. Don't call me anymore. We have nothing to say to each other. He stopped at Clark's and ordered a chili cheeseburger and a vanilla malt. I'd be afraid to drive that thing, his waitress admitted, eyeing his small car. Yeah, but I get 42 miles to the gallon, Jack agreed pleasantly. Upon arriving at his apartment, he and Michelle exchanged text messages incessantly until it reached 10 o'clock. Good night, Archie, she messaged, adding a kissy face. Love you, good night, he replied. Love you more, came her response. I know, he retorted. He chuckled when she replied with a tongue-out smiley face. Fast forward to Wednesday afternoon, and Jack eagerly anticipated dancing with his bubbles. Whitney bid him a good evening, her plain face flushing. A ham and cheese po' boy dressed with olives and a dash of hot sauce fueled Jack up. Archie, Michelle exclaimed, rushing over to greet him. Hey, Bubbles, he grinned, admiring her outfit. You're looking good. They danced, with Kizzy guiding the moves, offering corrections where needed and praising those who didn't. As class came to an end, Jack leaned in and gently kissed Michelle's lips. This is Brian's weekend with the kids, Michelle coyly mentioned. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I want to make love to you, Jack blurted out. She rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. All right, that sounds good, she agreed. On Thursday, Jack had a heart-to-heart conversation with Barry, Michelle's father. During their talk, Jack discovered that Michelle's wedding had been rushed and there was no honeymoon. As a result, Jack decided to plan a romantic weekend getaway. So on Friday, he left work at noon. Jack chuckled when he saw Jacqueline's Mercedes-Benz parked at the Superior used car lot. They called them pre-owned, but even the salesperson had to admit they were used cars. You know what? Yeah, I'll take that one, Jack agreed and purchased Jacqueline's car. Afterward, he returned to his small apartment and packed his suitcase. His good mood soured slightly when he arrived at the Voisin house and saw Brian Melançon struggling with both Barry's and Mandy's car seats. Mealy was already seated in the front. Then a thought occurred to Jack. Let me handle this, he said, taking Barry from Brian. You go get Mandy. Hello, Mr. Archie, Mealy greeted him. You're not going to hit me, are you? Brian asked, sounding apprehensive. Huh? No, go ahead, get her, Jack replied as he swiftly attached the clip of Barry's car seat to the seat bar. He then moved around and planted a kiss on Mealy's forehead and did the same to Mandy. Could I have a moment? I need to talk to you, Jack said to Brian. Are you free on Monday night? Monday? Yeah. I'm not busy, Brian confirmed. Following that, Jack assisted Michelle with her suitcase. The journey down took 2 hours, during which they conversed, getting to know each other better. Michelle mentioned that Brian had been a friend of Richard's and had always been kind to her. I mean, yeah, I know I'm overweight, but he always says hi and tells me I'm pretty, Michelle remarked. Hi, you're pretty, Jack echoed. And because I'm allergic to latex, Michelle added. I think I know what you're about to say, Jack interjected. He slightly pursed his lips. He had bought a 12-pack of condoms. However, if Michelle West is allergic to latex, they will either have to refrain from intimacy or take some risks. Jack hoped they'd take a chance, seeing her in her snug pink blouse and khaki shorts. Michelle, by the way she kept squeezing his hand, seemed to share that hope. Baton Rouge traffic was its usual nightmare, so Jack felt relieved when they finally reached Gonzales. For Michelle, who had never left DeGarde, Louisiana Bourbon Street was an eye-opening experience. She especially enjoyed Café du Monde, and Jack agreed they should eat there every day. But as night fell over the city, Michelle took Jack's hand and, with her big brown eyes, suggested they return to their room. As they walked to the hotel, she chatted incessantly, even in the creaking old elevator, and while he fiddled with the keycard. He pulled her to him, hugged her tightly, and kissed her. "Are you nervous, Bubbles?" Jack asked quietly. "No," Michelle denied at first, but then nodded, hiding her face on his chest. "I'm going to feel so fat right now," she admitted. "But you're also so beautiful," Jack assured her. He didn't deny her weight. She was significantly overweight, and they both admitted it. Jack decided to be honest, telling Michelle that she was beautiful no matter what. Leading her to the bed, he gently pushed her to sit on the edge, and he turned off the light in the room and made sure that the curtains were tightly closed. "That's it," he whispered, finding her in the dark. "I can't see you now." He kissed her hard. "I can feel you," he murmured, stroking her plump hand. "I can feel you, too," she whispered back. "I love you, baby." Their kisses were gentle. Upon hearing his declaration of love, Michelle passionately kissed him back, clinging to him. Then she pushed him onto the bed, and they had an unforgettable night. "Should we turn around?" he inquired, and blushing intensely, she complied. "I adore that lovely rear end of yours, you know," he announced, his hands caressing the curves. "It's big and plump," she grumbled. "It's beautiful, just like you," he reassured. She then glanced at him, approving of his physique. "We can turn off that light now, okay?" she directed. "Sure," Jack agreed. He switched off the light. A moment later, the other bedside lamp turned on. "Hey!" Michelle protested. "What?" Jack grinned, pulling down the comforter. "I turned off that light. You didn't mention anything about this one." "Oh, come on, you're teasing me," she laughed, tossing a pillow at him. The laughter eased her discomfort about her body. But it was time for bed. He turned off the light. They snuggled together, ready to drift off to sleep. "Ah," she suddenly exclaimed. "I almost forgot to say my prayers before going to sleep." She slipped out of bed, still naked, except for socks, and knelt beside the bed. A moment later, Jack joined her, kneeling down and bowing his head in prayer. Brian appeared jittery, uneasy. Jack requested a coffee, instructing the counter girl to add evaporated milk, then proceeded to approach the table. "Hey, Brian, how are you?" Jack greeted, settling into the bench opposite Brian. Good. I'm good, you?" Brian responded nervously. "I'm good, yeah. Got a crock pot of black bean soup simmering for me at home," Jack replied, blowing on his coffee. What did you want to talk to me about?" Brian cautiously broached the subject. "Why did my wife want to cheat on me?" Jack blurted out, cutting to the chase. "Huh?" Brian asked, caught off guard. He had rehearsed numerous scenarios in his mind, but Jack's direct question had not been one of them. Jack swallowed a scalding mouthful of coffee and set his cup down. "I gave her everything she asked for. That enormous mansion. I detested that place, but Jacqueline insisted on it. Her car. She had a perfectly fine Lincoln, but insisted on a Mercedes-Benz," Jack recounted, looking at Brian. "I'm just trying to understand myself," he confessed. "I give her everything she wants, never cheat on her, don't beat her, don't gamble. And then she suddenly says she's going to have a little fling, yeah, and I'm trying to figure out why." "She's getting older," Brian remarked. "What? So am I." "We're all getting older," Jack spluttered. Brian raised a hand. "You said you wanted to know why, but I can't tell you if you're too busy talking," Brian said. They locked eyes for a moment. Finally, Jack nodded in agreement. "She's getting a bit older," Brian continued, "and her youngest is now out of the house, Dee or Debbie or something." "Deidre," Jack confirmed. "And she's feeling old. Undesirable," Brian elaborated. He smiled and shrugged. All it took was a "wow, don't you look nice today, and you really have a daughter old enough to be in college," and Jacqueline was smiling and laughing. John Morin confessed. "Dad, I always tell her she looks good." "Yeah," Jack spat angrily. "Yes, but coming from you, it doesn't have the same impact," Brian said. "You're the husband. That doesn't mean you can get away with not saying it to her, but it just doesn't have the same effect." Brian finished his coffee and glanced at the counter. "Go ahead," Jack said. "Get yourself another." Brian did and returned. "Anyway, she's giving me a smile, a bit of a flirtation. It's flattering that a much younger man is giving her any attention." Brian continued his story. He blew on his cup before recoiling slightly when his lips touched the hot mug. "It's hot," Jack concurred, taking a sip of his own coffee. "That's how I got involved with Cindy, the school secretary, Stacy, the chemistry teacher. And then there was Michelle, the one I got caught with," Brian confessed. Both men sat silently for a moment. "All it takes is a little attention, and then they start confiding in you about their husband, how he neglects them, never takes them out, preferring to lounge in front of the TV," Brian elaborated. He winced as he sipped his coffee, feeling the heat. "Remember when you bought that smart car?" Brian recalled. "All I had to do was mention if you were still mourning the Saints' losing season, and she spilled all your flaws." Brian shrugged. "Oh, he's got a new car, and it's not practical?" "What a selfish jerk," Brian remarked. "Oh, he won't take you dancing? He'd rather watch football? I bet he's not treating you right in bed either, huh?" "Doesn't matter. I'm breaking my back for her every day of the week," Jack growled. "Most husbands do," Brian conceded. "But all I have to do is hint that it's not sufficient." Jack drained his coffee mug, even though the coffee had turned bitter in his stomach. "And Michelle fell for you?" he mused, more to himself than to Brian. "Oh, her. Always the chubby kid. Just had to tell her she was cute," Brian scoffed. "Worst." He stopped short, recalling seeing Jack outside Michelle's house the previous Friday. So when the serpent left the Garden of Eden, he became an English teacher, Jack thought to himself as he stood up. He couldn't help but smile, though. Brian Melanson was a smooth talker, but Michelle had confided in Jack that Brian Melanson was lacking in bedroom skills. According to Michelle, Brian never gave her pleasure. Jack forced a tight smile, wished Brian good night, Brian, and left the Jitters coffee shop. Back in his modest apartment, Jack made himself black bean soup, adding more hot sauce to it. He and Michelle exchanged several text messages. Tuesday morning brought Jack not only a smile on his face — he had been waking up with a smile for a long time — but also relief from feeling like a loser. For some time he was tormented by questions. Why did Jacqueline want to change? Was this her first betrayal? Why did he fail as a husband, as the breadwinner of the family? But now he saw everything more clearly. He did not fail. He might have been distracted for a moment, but it wasn't his fault. He also realized that he had grown out of the bachelor apartment he rented. Tonight marked their 12th lesson. Jack had enrolled them in another set of 12 lessons, footing the bill for both himself and Michelle, despite Barry, Michelle's father, offering to contribute. "Why?" Jack grinned as Mealy held one of his hands and Mandy the other. "You're not dancing with her." "Because, Mr. Auchie," Mealy patiently explained once more as they walked, "they serve hamburgers, French fries, and malts, and there's a slide to play on." "And they give you a prize in the box, too," Mandy chimed in. As Jack and Michelle swirled on the dance floor, their movements graceful and synchronized, Jack looked down at Michelle, her face flushed with joy. "Hard to believe it's been 12 weeks since you couldn't tell left from right," Kizzy remarked. The music began to fade and Jack spun Michelle away from him. Then, as she spun back, he knelt down on one knee, presenting a stunning yellow gold ring with a 1-carat diamond and 4 smaller diamonds. Michel Voisin, I love you more than anything, Jack declared loudly. Will you marry me? All eyes turned to them as they stood at the center of the room, the other couples halting their dancing to witness the moment. Michelle stared in amazement at the ring before pouncing on Jack, pulling him down to the floor as she embraced him tightly, showering him with frantic kisses. "Oh, Archie," she exclaimed, laughing. The other couples cheered and laughed as Jack struggled to stand up. "I guess that's a yes?" Kizzy joked as Michelle finally let go of Jack. "And you're all invited to the wedding, got it?" Michelle declared, admiring her ring. "Really, Dad?" JJ teased when Jack shared the news with him. "So, my stepmom's younger than me?" Deidre pretended to be upset about losing her status as the baby of the family, but Mealy assured her that being a big sister would be fun. "It's awesome," Mealy explained. "I even get to stay up 15 minutes later because I'm the big sister." "So does that mean I get to stay up 15 minutes later than you?" Deidre asked, amused. "Yes," Mealy confirmed. "Dad, why do they keep calling you Mr. Archie?" Percy inquired as they toured Jack's new house. JJ, Shauna holding their son Trey, Percy with his pregnant wife, Addison, Penelope with her partner Alyssa, and Deidre all turned to hear the answer. "When I first met Michelle, I nicknamed her Bubbles," Jack explained. "Bubbles?" Alyssa questioned, her cherubic face breaking into a smile. "I don't know. She just had this bubbly energy and it slipped out," Jack confessed. "And then I discover his middle name is Archibald," Michelle interjected, intertwining her fingers with his. "And he's a huge Saints fan," Penelope nodded knowingly. "Archie Manning is still the greatest quarterback the Saints ever had," JJ, Percy, and Penelope reiterated what they'd grown up hearing. While Mealy and Mandy showed their new siblings the boundaries for their upcoming swimming pool, Deidre leaned towards her father. "Sorry, Dad, I accidentally mentioned to Mom that you and Michelle are getting married next Saturday," Deidre confessed. "Sweetheart, it's no big deal. I'm not keeping it a secret from your mother." Jack shrugged. He grinned as Mealy assured Shauna that she'd teach Trey how to swim. "Well, Mom got pretty upset," Deidre added. "That's her own problem," Jack remarked. "She's the one to blame."